Good evening, everyone. Wanted to reach out to you very quickly and talking about a very specific topic. And the topic this evening is that agriculture is a business and should be seen as such. This evening, I was able to attend a very informative discussion hosted by the Georgetown Chamber, and we had three experts on agriculture on that particular panel really indicating the amount of agricultural produce that we create produce in Guyana. However, we are in a situation where we still import quite a bit, from onions to potatoes to garlic and the like. And you would think that in a country with so much arable land and abundance of water, which is one of the key resources that is needed to really produce agricultural produce at a significant level, that we would be doing a lot more agriculture. Now, why this message? We talk a lot about oil and gas, and we currently already have one vessel that is producing oil and that is being exported. So Guyana will receive the earnings from that particular resource. However, if you think about employment in the oil and gas sector, even when we have five FPSOs in another couple of years, we'll still end up in a situation that maybe direct employment in oil and gas may be around 10,000 people. Indirect employment, because of all the economic activity that is going to be created, so travel, tourism, accommodation, food, other kind of services, will be maybe, some estimates are saying up to 50,000 extra jobs. Some estimates stretch it up to as much as 300,000 extra jobs that are going to be created over the next 5 years or so. Now, one of the key things to remember is until we have an onshore processing facility, and that's a topic for another session, most of the work will be at the shore base, and there's no chemical industry, there's no refinery, so we might not be ending up with those massive amount of jobs that other countries have, for example. Now, with agriculture, we've done rice and sugar for quite a while. It was interesting to see that the exports of rice are now all 10 times higher than those of sugar. Cash crops are coming very close behind, and even our fisheries exports are 3 times higher than our sugar exports. Now, again, the thing that the other industries that are growing have in common are that rice, fisheries, cash crops are privately done, so private investments and privately marketed, privately exported, whereas sugar is still very much in the hands of the government. And as we would have recently understood as well, for some of us, but governments are really supposed to be facilitating and creating a really conducive environment for the private sector to be able to invest, because the private sector will have to be efficient in order to generate a profit. It is very different in the public sector. If for example, if sugar doesn't do well, it is not that difficult for a government to step in and say, well, let's take some of the money that we have from taxes and subsidize the sugar industry, which has been happening in Guyana for over 100 years. And you can look at it from the one perspective. Yes, it needs to be, that industry employs a lot of people. We need to keep it alive. But similarly, rice was in a very similar position in the late 80s when we did have a wave of privatization. And look at rice today. I believe the number was nearly $300 million in revenues coming in for the rice exports, as compared to 27 or 28 million US dollars for sugar. Now, Of course, you don't want to just privatize and say, here, take it. And it's also not the right thing to shut down an industry, shut down a factory, and to then sell it off. Because as soon as you shut down a factory, you're starting to end up with this scrap value. So I would strongly recommend to make sure that you never shut down a running business and then look for an investor. Investors are always more likely to pay a premium for a functioning operation. So I do believe that it does need to be privatized. I remember that we had several proposals for the estates in Berbice, for example. So I think that needs to be revisited very quickly. And it would be up to the investor to decide if they should continue in sugar, for example. Looking at rice, it might not be a far stretch of the imagination to convert much of this land to rice production. And then we could possibly double our rice exports and maybe hit the 500 million, $500 million US in income from rice. But there are other crops that could generate even significantly more income for Guyana. One of them that you may have heard about is industrial hemp, that fetches nearly 10 times the value for what rice currently fetches per acre. So, and many other crops. We know that onions are being grown now in an experimental phase. Potatoes are being grown in an experimental phase. And if we really want to be able to retain a lot of the foreign currencies that are coming into the country, because think about it, we will be selling our oil. I think we get about 50 million US for every shipment of oil on average. So it's 1 million barrels per shipment and multiplied by whatever the price is. So we've noticed that we've been getting about $50 on average for our oil in the past 3 shipments, which means that we don't want to be receiving that money. And of course, we can't use all of that money. Thank God, I may say. Some of it will have to be put up for future generations. Some of it will be used for budgetary support. And some of it can be used to stimulate other industries within the country. But when we receive this money, we don't want to take the same money and import food, agricultural produce, which we actually have the opportunity of growing right here. Things like, onions, potatoes, and the like, broccoli, and I even saw that we're importing some mangoes as well. And, for those of you who have visited the interior of Guyana, I've driven in some places in Region 9 where you basically drive on mangoes because there's no market for it and no one to reap it. But if we do move to the point of actually seeing agriculture as a business, we have to stop thinking about farmers like barefooted people who spend their whole day in the mud and the sun. If you go to Brazil, if you go to Europe, if you go to the US, farmers are some of the wealthiest people because farmers are the people who feed us. And they play such a critical role in our society. But somehow in Guyana and across some developing countries as well, we see farmers as the poor people in society. And that is really, really unfortunate because we are taking our money and we are actually subsidizing farmers. They're buying products from farmers which are driving their air-conditioned tractors or their GPS-controlled tractors in some other country. And we're not actually supporting our own. However, our farmers do need to realize the role that they play. I'm thinking as well that many farmers actually don't want, because they know the life they have had, and especially if you've spent any time in Berbice, I don't know a single cane cutter in Berbice that wants their child to grow up to be a cane cutter. So they need to understand that there are better ways as well. There's technology. Many farmers still encourage their children to become a doctor and a lawyer, and there's nothing wrong with doctors and lawyers, but we can end up with a glut of those and not enough people to actually feed us. And if they actually pursue agricultural science or even the engineering fields, and even business administration. They can really understand how to use technology, how to use business administration to start measuring what the demand is. Because without demand, it makes no sense that we increase the supply. And in the past, we did have a situation where we were encouraging people to grow more. But the problem with growing more is that we increase the supply, and if we don't increase the demand at the same rate, all we're doing is that we're creating a glut, and then the prices crash, and then nobody wants to farm that particular produce anymore. So it is important that we always, and especially if you think like a business portion, it is more important to increase the demand first of all. And some countries, even if we look at our neighbor in the late 90s, Suriname came up with a campaign that says, I love SU, basically saying, I love Suriname. And if you look behind me over here, you see we actually have I love Guyana. That should have probably been I love GY. And what they did is that they branded many of their locally manufactured products, agriculture and otherwise, with that branding, I love SU. Why don't we start moving in that direction so that people can really say, well, if I really love Guyana, if I want to put my money where my mouth is, I'll actually buy Guyanese products. And when we start investing more in Guyanese products, we'll also create some amount of competition between not just the farmers, but also the people who process any type of raw material that we have right now. And they will get better, right? The more volume they do, they can invest in better machinery. Hopefully our banks start understanding that they need to finance farmers and processors as well. And I can feel for the banks as well, because most of the people who are currently as farmers, and a significant percentage, don't put together a business plan, don't do the projections that are necessary, may not have the assets to secure what investments they want to make, and even worse, they don't benefit from crop insurance. And in many other countries, especially the developed world, you have crop insurance. So if you do make the investment into a crop and for whatever reason you have flooding or the crop doesn't really bear the returns, the insurance covers the difference. In Guyana, if a farmer has a bad crop, they may lose their tractor. Some of them might even lose their home. And it's very risky in that case to be a farmer in Guyana. So we do have this gap that we need to fill. And therefore, I would strongly recommend that some of the income from oil and possibly gas in the future is utilized to develop a class of farmers that understand that they are maybe, they're not farmers, they're food producers. Maybe if they start seeing themselves, like one of the panelists this evening, maybe if they start seeing themselves not as farmers, but as food producers, they will understand the importance that they have in the supply chain. None of us could eat or drink the oil that is coming out of the ground. And in the future, by all means, we might not even need oil and gas, 20 years from now, when we have figured out better means of capturing solar energy, better means of capturing wind energy. What are we going to do with the oil then? So in the meantime, whilst we get there, we should use some of this income to make sure that we become far more efficient in our farming, substitute as many of the imports as we can, so that we can keep some of the foreign revenues, foreign currencies in country. However, not going to the point that we start substituting products that we can produce effectively. Right? Because if we can't do strawberries, for example, effectively, it makes more sense to do rice really well, or do sugar really well, or fisheries, or timber, or something that we're really well at, earn the foreign revenues, and then buy the strawberries from the people who do that really well. But we shouldn't continue really pushing and importing products that we could, with the right investments, with the right technology, with the right capital, that we could actually produce competitively here. one of the good things about the whole COVID season that we've had behind us is that many people have actually taken a liking and have gone back into agriculture and developed a love even for agriculture. I'd really like to congratulate those people. And if you really love it, if you really understand the economics behind agriculture, maybe you need to apply for your own piece of agricultural land. Maybe that should be of importance to the current government to issue pieces of land where people can scale it up. And we also need to look at mega farming, because the people that we are competing against are not planting an acre or 2 acre just for their local market. The people we are competing with as a country have thousands and thousands of acres under cultivation for a single crop. So if we are really gonna not just deal with our local market, if we are going to be able to supply the Caribbean and be the breadbasket of the Caribbean and further afield, we do need to start being able to move to mega farming, attracting large investors, and mechanizing as well. We're just 750,000 people in this country. We don't have enough labor, and oil and gas will push salaries up. So we cannot afford to use the old strategy of just throwing some more bodies at it because you can hire somebody for 60,000 or 100,000. In a year from now, 2 years from now, I don't think we'll find anybody that we could hire at 100,000 per month. So we do need to get smart. We do need to do it fast, because we can have a lot of money coming in. We could import anything we want to import, but the day that the money runs dry because we're out of oil or oil doesn't have the value anymore, then our economy will be broken, because we would not have developed the resilience to survive or to feed ourselves. So please do not end up in a situation where we cannot feed ourselves. See agriculture as a business. Respect farmers. Respect farmers. I'll repeat that again, because sometimes we ourselves, we look down on farmers. We don't go to the Marriott and negotiate with them for the drink or the food that we buy. But sometimes we go to the market and we haggle with the farmer. And think about that. That portion has to be in the sun, do all the hard work, and we haggle with them over a little bit. And the people who could actually afford to afford to give us a discount, we don't say a word. We don't ask those people for a discount. So I'm not one who believes in discounts. I believe that when people deliver value, they need to be paid accordingly. So do all you can to give people the respect they need and encourage them to seek the right technology, get the knowledge, encourage your kids to, if you are a farmer, encourage your kids to do agri-science, business management, maybe civil engineering, maybe geotechnical, chemistry, biology. Encourage them, because if they've grown in that type of society, they understand the value of farming. You just need to equip them really well. So I really wanted to share that with you. I think more people need to talk about this. We can't end up in a situation where, because we weren't talking about agriculture, agriculture dies. Please don't let agriculture die a slow and silent death. Please make sure you do all you can to understand the value of agriculture and then to do something about it. So very happy to be able to share this with you this evening. If you have any comments, please leave your comments. I'll be sure to respond to them. And if you think that this video has any good value to you, and a farmer that needs to hear what I said this evening, share it with them. If there are any farmers watching, if there are any people in agro processing, and you really want to have some more knowledge on how you can move from agriculture and agro processing into an actual business that you can earn really well from, reach out to us. We'll provide you with a session or two to get you to understand what the potential is, and so that you can really make the investments that are necessary. So thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one.